Okay, I've shared the page.
Yes,
I
yes.
mean, article with the splash runners and the group.
Yes.
I'm just having a quick.
One moment. Okay,
Look
so
at one out. I need to put some kind of picture or something on there. So I'll just.
yes. Okay, Sir Herc will be the one who will be. I think he's coming in, so we can give enough time for him. But I will make you now as the host because so that if there will be a if there will be a what is the one that you're using for host? Anyway, yeah, we can still do it and yeah.
Use
So
the hang
okay.
on.
Yes, yes. Oh, no worries, ba. We can still use this one. It's just that of course we can still make you as besides call control. So are you starting now the recording, buddy?
Not yet. Not
Okay.
yet. I'll start the recording when Hook comes in.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm just
So if there
looking
comes
for.
in, okay, is there people coming in? Okay, Maki is there. Okay.
Cool. I'm just getting some.
Could you check?
I'm getting.
Okay. Okay. Could you check if we live now, if we are live now on Facebook, if it's running now? Because to those who are on Facebook Live, good day. We are already starting. We have technical problems, so it might look like that the angle on my camera is different, or you don't see myself when speaking because.
Facebook Live has started.
Okay, yes. So good day to everyone. So this time for our Pinoy Athletics Rap Talk, every Thursday is like an open mic session, ladies and gentlemen. So our topic for this afternoon is related on the situation of the school varsity programs due to COVID-19. And we have two resource speakers, or should I say one, Professor Hercules Calianta of Lyceum of the Philippines University, one of our presenters for this afternoon, and also our reactor is Mr. Christian Valleser of the University of the Philippines, Diliman, who will talk about aspect on management and also some considerations on training, especially in the field of sports science and strength and conditioning. With me is my co-host, Andrew Perry, Level 3 coach of Athletics Australia. And also with me is Maki McCray of Nueva Vizcaya, who will be also sharing her reactions later. So we are both live on Zoom and on Facebook. For those who cannot log in, we are live on Facebook so that you can still type your comments and questions. This is an open mic session, so meaning pwede po kayong magtanong related sa athletics in any way, in any capacity. We will try to answer your questions on board and and live for this afternoon. So with me is Andrew Perry. So Andrew, since you already wrote earlier about the topic on the situation of the varsity floor, can you give us updates on what you have researched and talked to some of the directors earlier for 5 to 10 minutes?
Yeah. So far, I've spoken with we've seen documentation from Latran. There was a memorandum posted around. There has been news on TIP and Perpetual. And I have messaged the director of FEU, but I haven't got a reply yet. But I did speak last night with some people with FEU who were basically saying that at this stage their team's 100% intact for track and field at this point. Also, the UST, the Varsitarian came out with an article saying that that there were cuts of 30 athletes being made from the team. However, there was an article which came out in Rappler this morning, basically saying that their team, with the Rappler editor talking to the IPEA of UST, and IPEA basically stating to Rappler in the article that all their scholarships will remain intact at least until about December. I also had a talk with one of our guest speakers today, Mr. Hercules from Lyceum, and he was basically highlighting with me some of the contingency plans that Lyceum has in place in terms of the factor is, the online learning aspect. Like he had some very good ideas about, presenting online learning modules to, or not just online modules, but also other means of correspondence in which the athletes can continue, getting the benefits of those studies. So, some schools are looking at online type of stuff. Some schools are looking at like possibly resuming classes at some point. There is a variety of different things being approached. As far as I know, there's really, at the moment with FEU and UST, I'm still waiting to hear back from their sports directors in regards to the actual situation, because there was information being given that, some of the students of these schools are basically sort of shopping around for other schools which have vacant scholarships. But, until we hear back from the sports directors of these schools, we can't really confirm, what the status of those schools actually is at this point.
Yes, okay. Yes, buddy, and yes, that's right. So it's a very.
I've written to them and I'm waiting for their response.
Yes.
To these questions.
Yes, that's good. So for ladies and gentlemen, we have also a guest for this afternoon to share his reactions or topics related to the situation of the university sports program or university athletics program in relation with the crisis created by the COVID-19. With me is the former dean of the UP College of Human Kinetics, and also currently now the sport or athletics director of Lyceum Philippines University, one of my mentors at the University of the Philippines College of Human Kinetics during my stint as a student in human movement science. I would like to say hello to Professor Hercules Calianta. Sir Herc, good afternoon. Can you hear us? We're live now, both on Facebook and on Zoom. So,
yes.
Yes,
good afternoon.
Okay.
Good afternoon. Thank you for your invitation.
Thank you din po for accepting our invitation. So this to give you this program, it will be like an open forum type session because we have 2 meetings per week. The Track Talk Tuesdays is mostly like an interview with a guest speaker. Like for next week, we will have Coach Henry Dagmil. But for Thursday, it's very informal type. It's like an open mic session. So anyone from Facebook or in Zoom can log in and then ask questions related to the topic for this afternoon, like about the sport and sport situation or athletics varsity situation in among schools in relation to COVID-19. So with me as co-reactor is Andrew Perry of from Australia, a former consultant of the Philippine Sports Commission and my co-founder in Pinoyathletics. And also with us is, of course, our colleague from UP, Diliman, College of Human Kinetics, Wisdom Valley, sir, and Maki McRae of Murid Academy in Nueva Vizcaya as our guest for this afternoon. So, Sir Herc, can you give us an initial update on the directives or policies now of NCA among NCAA schools in relation with the COVID-19 crisis, especially for schools with scholarship programs? But can you give us a situation about this now?
Well, I just came from the NCAA Management Committee meeting. As I told Enzo when we talked last time, all schools are hurting. We're all hit by COVID-19, hit hard. because of the suspension of competitions, practices, and even classes. So most of the athletes went home to their provinces to be with their families. They're more stable with them. Those who were left in Metro Manila continued to be supported by uh, by their schools. By and large, with respect to the policy of the NCAA, well, the NCAA recognizes that it's really the IATF that dictates whether sports can be played already or not. And playing is different from competing. When you stage a competition, that entails a bigger crowd. That entails, even if you say that it's behind closed doors and no audience is allowed, the mere fact that you need officials, you need the coaches and players to gather around in one place, that's against the IATF guidelines on COVID-19. So because of that, the NCAA has to wrestle against the other collateral conditions that resulted from COVID-19 and its ECQ strategy, because enrollment is foreseen to be low, so revenue will be low. So because of that, coaches, this is across the board, some coaches were frozen. Some coaches were, their contracts were allowed to lapse, with, of course, the condition that when normalcy returns, they will be hired for or rehired for maintenance of the teams. Of course, it all depends as well on the financial status of the school. Now, some schools let go of scholarships for their students, which means that scholarships were suspended. Other schools maintained scholarships for their students, but some of the miscellaneous fees will have to be handled or will have to be paid by the students. But other schools maintained a several teams only, because the NCAA is thinking of holding only competitions in the mandatory events for season 96, which is this coming school year's season. Those will be 4 events only. So that's basketball, volleyball, track and field, and swimming. So some schools maintained scholarships for their student athletes in those events. Others maintained across the board, like Lyceum of the Philippines University still provides scholarship to most, if not all, of his athletes. Unfortunately, the coaches' contracts were allowed to lapse because there is no definite date yet as to when competitions will start. And also, practices are not being held primarily because there's no face-to-face meeting. Most athletes are still in their provinces. So it is, conditioning is on an individual basis. Guidance can be given by sports people or even the athletes themselves who have been training for quite some time. So that's it. Actually, all schools have been hard hit, and the range of effects in terms of student scholarship is from no scholarship to with scholarship and everything in between. Other benefits such as scholarship, such as allowances, dorms, and meals have been suspended primarily because they're mostly in the provinces. This is across the board as well.
Okay, thank you, Sir Herc, for the situation about this with the challenges of the school, especially in the NCAA perspective due to COVID-19. Is next question is, how do you think on this situation that, of course, as you said, some of the coaches were not renewed or like frozen, as you mentioned earlier. Is there capacity for for most NCAA schools to at least assist them in this kind of times, or it's still a case-to-case basis on the economics or finances of among NCAA member schools? Can you give us?
Actually, yeah,
Yes, continue.
The NCAA recognizes that it's really difficult for the coaches, and we recognize also that because it's their main source of livelihood, it's going to be they're really going to be hard hit. So we are presently gathering data so that we can, on their behalf, we can argue for financial support from the government for coaches who have been displaced, from their work. Of course, this has to be argued by our legal counsel. If you look at the number of coaches who have been affected, by the way, not only coaches, because when you stage a competition, for example, you have your table officials, you have your referees, they're also hard hit. So we also included them in the personnel who have been hit badly by COVID-19 and its effects. And we are doing a position paper so that we can actually rally behind them for the government to give them subsidies or cash assistance for the rest of their non-employment. So that's, other schools provided financial assistance. While some schools cut their pay as early as March, other schools maintained them until the end of May, even if it was already a lockdown.
Okay, I see. Sir Herc, thank you. At least we understand the plight of the coaches in this kind of situation. So the next question is, how about the athletes, especially those who are under the varsity programs? Because of course, most of them are bound and also study under the varsity program or scholarships of their schools. So how, now that we have COVID-19, and we read in most news that some of them of their contracts or their studies are also suspended, and of the fact that most of our varsity students are studying among, especially in NCAA or in other leagues, because of the scholarship programs for their varsities. So is there any can you give us a light on how did among NCAA schools manage this situation for athletes? Because of course they are bound by their contracts or any upon their admission. So can you give us point of view there?
Well, first and foremost, most schools still honor most of the contracts or most of the agreements that the athletes entered into with the school. So as I said, some schools are still providing scholarships. If there is a semester that's going to be offered, if there is a distance learning program that will be offered, the NCAA, based on how it's going to honor eligibility for the next for the coming competitions, we still emphasize that they have to study. So in other words, if the school wants them to compete for them, they need to enroll them. Okay? And, you know, this is actually a favorable condition for athletes, because if the school needs your services, then the school will be required to have you um, um, enrolled. If you don't have the money, then the school has to put up the scholarship for you so that you can be used as an athlete for the coming competitions in the NCAA. That's very clear. The NCAA will not tolerate athletes who have not been enrolled, or in other words, if their enrollment have been cut for whatever reason. Okay, the eligibility rules were relaxed a bit. For example, in the NCAA, ordinary conditions demanded or required for athletes to enroll in 12 units and to pass 60% of the total number of units that they were enrolled in. Because of the possibility of dire consequences facing some of the athletes, we considered that maybe if they enroll in 6 units and pass 50% of that, it will already be acceptable for their eligibility. We relaxed a bit our eligibility primarily because we recognize that if it's a distance learning mode, no, whether it is asynchronous or synchronous, they will be hard pressed to do things outside of the face-to-face mode of learning. And this is the reason why we decided, let's give them all the leeway provided they are enrolled. Because they're student athletes, they're not professional athletes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Sir Herc. So it means that based on the situation and also the conditions, so meaning all students and all their contracts are continuous, meaning that they are still subject as admitted to or enrolled in their respective schools. So there are bound terms and conditions of their admission to the varsity program. So it means there is the cancellation, or should I say in termination of their contract as student athletes is highly discouraged. So meaning hindi din ini-encourage ng among NCAA schools na pauwiin or i-cut or i-suspend ang kanilang contracts as long as they still have this kind of conditions. Tama po ba, Sir Herc? If I'm not mistaken.
To clarify, a lot of the athletes, most athletes went home to their provinces, okay? And they completed the second semester of 2019-2020 via distance learning. Now, those who went home, come enrollment, if they wish to enroll, and this is, I can only speak for LPU, the other schools, some teams, some athletes of some teams, they let go in terms of scholarships, okay? Because they cannot sustain it. But once in LPU at least, and in a lot of schools as well in the NCAA, if they are needed, for example, if they're going to compete in swimming or in track and field, they cannot be fielded in by the school if they're not enrolled in the first semester. So that means the school has to enroll them. And if they don't have the money, I mean, if the student doesn't have the money, then the school has to put up the tuition fee. But I'm not talking about all athletes, because some athletes, some schools, because of their financial status, cannot anymore maintain all of the teams. I'm talking of the 4 mandatory events: swimming, basketball, volleyball, and track and field. At least those 4 events, all athletes of those 4 events have been maintained. I can say that.
Okay. Thank you, Sir Herc, for that insight. Especially, I know it can be really challenging, especially for an administrator like you and among other administrators among NCAA and schools from other collegiate leagues in our country. So it's a very tough situation, especially now that students, of course, still studying, but at the same time, they're also bounded by this kind of situation. So for now, I guess I have already done with my questions. So I give now the floor to my co-host and co-founder of Politics, Andrew Perry, for his set of questions. So Andrew, it's your turn for the questions. If you have other comments for Dean Hercalianta of LPU.
Yep. Okay. So, first off, thank you very much for taking out time to talk to us, Dean Herc, and also the conversation the other day. I'm taking it from what you've said that, you know, different schools within the NCAA. We won't discuss the UAP because obviously that's an entirely different league, but with the NCAA,
Yes.
based on this meeting,
Different league.
the schools are in, you know, each school has a magnitude of different challenges they're facing because of this COVID incident. And, you know, different schools are applying, you know, different levels of cuts or whatever to remedy the situation, to make sure that their existing athletes are still, you know, they can keep on as many of their existing athletes as possible, if it means even cutting some other sports. You did mention the four mandatory sports: volleyball, swimming, basketball, and athletics. Does this mean to say that that these other member NCAA schools have actually changed their decisions? Like, I'm talking about Latran and Perpetual. Have they actually reconsidered their sports programs, or was that not really stated within the ManCom?
Actually, you know, when we met, there, there were several intimations of their status, okay? And, you know, athletes will try to get as much as they can from being a student athlete. Now, there were reports of shopping around, and the attitude of the ManCom members was this: if they want to go to your school because they have a scholarship there, I will allow them because it will benefit them. So in other words, it is not really a standard way that the NCAA schools maintained athletes. Some have cut even within the mandatory event teams. Like, for example, they used to maintain, this is just an example, if there were 50 athletes in basketball before, including their pool, they cut it down to 30 and let go of the 20. Or in track and field, if you had 50 athletes, they cut it down to 30 because that's all they can afford in terms of. And some are still giving allowances, while others, even if they're already in the provinces, but others, most of the schools suspended allowances because they are already with their own families. So it's really a different ways of dealing with it.
Dean, what I heard was, in the case of this particular situation, what I've heard is that some students had approached schools for transfers, but the schools unfortunately had to say no, because the thing is that the schools really, you know, had to protect the existing athletes they have. Because if they take on the responsibility of bringing on more on an already, you know, strained situation with no budget from enrollments and whatnot, then they can't honour that commitment to the athletes that they currently have at the moment if they were taking on, say, transfers. in light of that, one of my other questions is, with contracts with schools, I mean, you can probably speak for your school, but like you may know about other schools, the contracts between athletes and schools, are they actually written, or is there actually written contracts in place?
Yeah, most of well, it's an agreement. It's most of them, if when they enter, they're not yet of majority age. They're below 18 years of age. So the agreement is between them, between the school and the guardian, which means the parents. Okay, it is written, but usually it can also be rescinded depending on several conditions, among which are, of course, it's natural to have disciplinary conditions being one of them, as well as force majeure. And to a certain extent, this is force majeure.
Are the agreements between the, okay, let's say for example, the agreements are usually between the parents and the school, because, you know, like say for example, a kid comes in and they're 17, but probably more likely with the K to 12, kids are more likely to be about 19 or 18 when they come into schools and being as young as 17 as prior to the K to 12. But what I'm saying is these agreements, whether they're between the schools and the parents, or the schools and the children, if they're, or the athlete say has already reached the age of maturity when he entered the schools, are these legally binding documents, these written documents that have been put in place? Like,
yeah, actually,
or are they just written agreements?
Yeah, actually, in the Philippines, even if you're already of majority age, chances are if you get someone to play for you, the family is included, especially if he is a good player, a good athlete.
Yeah.
So he gets recruited, the whole family says yes to that. And as I said, the agreements are more often than not uh, honored by schools. However, uh, you know, this is a problematic situation because no matter how much you try to get something from the school, if the school cannot deliver anymore because of the low revenues coming from very limited collection or even very limited enrollment, then it becomes a problem already. Uh, and this is true not only among schools, I'm sure in other industries, in sports, PBA as well as PBL, the live contracts have been, I'm not sure if they have been rescinded, but a lot of the players who are now in the MPBL are also hard hit because their salaries, if they're not cut down to 20%, some of them have been given notice that they won't have salaries anymore because the industry, the company is really close to closing.
Okay. I'll just ask something else before I address this question that Wisdom Valesa has asked. Okay, so my query is, you know, like when we're talking about sources of revenue for sports teams, let's say, for example, a school has different sports, basketball, athletics, volleyball, swimming, and, you know, like whatever, soccer or whatever else, whatever other sports they're going to have. Does the source of funding vary for these sports? Like, for example, are some sports funded by, say, for example, enrollment fees, which are now non-existent at the moment because of the COVID situation, and are some teams a bit more stable? Like, I don't know, like for example, basketball always seems to find private sponsors a lot of the time, so a lot of schools' basketball teams are still intact. Do some teams have different sources of funding besides money which is coming in from school fees? Perhaps, I don't know, alumni or private enterprises, like sort of giving money towards a particular program?
Yeah, actually there are, uh, well, schools can be sponsored by big companies or philanthropist individuals who have now who have a lot of money at their disposal. Other schools just get them straight from uh, their their revenues, which means uh, tuition fees.
Yep.
Uh, some schools are blessed because they can be supported by San Miguel, for example. These schools have very lucrative uh, sports programs, not only for the players, but also for the coaches. But other schools are merely uh, financed by the school itself because the school sees it as a way of promoting school and eventually enrollment. And this is the reason why if there's no enrollment, then the first thing that gets cut is sports and advertisement, which usually go together.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, some schools have big sponsors like SM, for example. But we'll address Wisdom Valles's question. I had a similar question, which I will tie in with Wisdom Valles's question, but I'm guessing he's asking more your opinion on this, because question is, due to an extended time of relative inactivity, will there be a higher risk of injuries when sports competitions resume? And how can we mitigate the risk? I'm guessing he's asking, is there any online training in place, or any way of continuing with that training, even if the athletes are not, like physically with the coach or whatnot? Is there any way that that these athletes are going to train? You just did say before that the coaches have to wait, like as their contracts have lapsed. But what I'm basically asking is in regards to Wisdom's question is there any form of online training going to take place for the student athletes during, when at the same time that they're going through their online learning?
Oh yeah, actually, uh, I can only speak for my athletic department in LPU. Uh, I'll give credit where credit is due. Even if the coaches have already, where their contracts have been allowed to lapse, a lot of them still um minister to their respective teams through online training. Their main reason is, after all, I won't be doing anything anyway, and besides, because these are my players, we've been together for quite some time, and I understand that they will still be part of LPU athletics, so might as well give them something guidance, no, for their
Yep.
off-season training. Aside from
So,
that, uh, actually, the NCAA recognizes that it will be, we would not want athletes to get hurt competing, especially since they will come from relative inactivity. I mean, relative because they haven't been practicing strictly. So the NCAA, if ever it's going to come up with a season, will count back 3 months to announce when the season is going to start, to allow for the return of players to serious practice before they are allowed to compete. Uh, so that means if the NCAA is envisioning going back to the season by February, the callback of athletes must come in by October or November, which means even if the coaches is not yet there, they will have to strictly provide us with evidence that they are training, even if there's no physical face-to-face classes yet. This will, well, actually, this is what they did, the coaches did before May. They were continuously monitoring their athletes as in daily or at least 3 times a week. They were required to submit videos of their training sessions. So that can still be done, of course, no? And I think, and I can speak for my coaches. They were very honorable in saying that they will continue to minister to their athletes for the athletes to be ready if ever the callback comes soon.
Okay.
Well,
Andrew, yes.
it's good to know that you have a loyal group of coaches who are willing to, still help the athletes they've started with, even if, there's financial issues and they're not able to be paid. They're volunteering their time to help out. It's good that you have coaches who are that loyal and who really want to help your players be the best they can be, even if they have to make a bit of sacrifice. It's good to know that there are still people around like that. Ernell, would you like?
That's why I said credit. I put credit where credit is due.
Okay. Buddy, we will accommodate some of our questions. Thank you, Sir Herc, as well for joining us. So we hope that we can still hold you for the next 15 to 20 minutes. So, Maki McRae from Nueva Vizcaya asked, what will happen to aspiring athletes who had either already passed tryouts or who were lined up for tryouts in different universities? Won't this deeply impact varsity system as a whole if they don't take in incoming freshman athletes? There was already limited recruitment, as we know, because there are few years because of K-12. So can you, I hope, Sir Herc, you get
Sorry, you were a little bit choppy with the question. Can you repeat that, please?
Okay, I will also type. It's also on Zoom chat if you can read the Zoom. So again,
Okay.
So Maki McRae asked the question, and then while on those who are on board on Facebook Live, because we also are simulcast on Facebook Live, the impact of the bandwidth in the Philippines, we have also questions there, so we will accommodate. We will post as well your questions on Facebook Live, and then I will reply here on the chat on Zoom. Sometimes due to bandwidth, my voice is having connection challenges. Sir Herc, did you see the question?
Answer. Yes, yes, I did.
Continue, Sir Herc.
Yeah, actually, for those who tried out and already passed the tryout, they, at least in the case of LPU, they are included in those athletes who will be provided tuition fee discounts, or tuition fee discounts. Actually, to streamline the scholarship granting, there is a certain number of athletes per team. Okay, and this is what, and the LPU is going to maintain in as far as scholarships are concerned. Beyond that, if you have been recruited because you are a potential for the next 2 to 3 years, then the coach has to make a very good argument for you to be included in those who will be receiving scholarships, granting that your utility to the team hinges a lot on what will happen during your practices. Sometimes these athletes are recruited as a potential and they're given only approximately 50% discounts or 75% discount from tuition fee, which means they will still have to shoulder some amount of cost for the education. By all means, they will be maintained except if, as I said, they fall outside of the number of players who are supposed to be kept within a particular event. Our formula for that is whatever is the number of players in the lineup. For example, if it's basketball, 15 players, we add 50% for the pool. So 15 plus 8, that's 23. So you have 23 players who you can put under scholarship. Now, if ever there are 3, 4, 5 athletes who the coach feels uh, are are almost neck and neck in terms of their abilities and potential, then the 20 scholarships can be split so that more students can be accommodated using only 75% or 50% scholarship. Uh, that's dependent already on how the coach will play around with the number of scholarships that he has under his control. So there will still be a lot of discount. If let's say the tuition fee is 50 or 60,000 pesos, a 50% discount is 30,000. A 75% discount runs to 45,000. So there will be a sizable enough amount of discount for the athletes to consider.
Okay, thank you, Sir. Sorry. Yes. Okay. Thank you, Sir Herc. Next question is from our Facebook viewer. Was also on the chat box on Zoom so that you can read as well, but I will also read it. Will schools now look towards trying to move to a more business model in order to avoid similar situation in the future? I mean, will schools look towards more sponsorship for student athletes rather than reliance on school enrollment funds? That's the question of Russ Gila from the Facebook comment section on Facebook Live. Sir Herc, you can also read it on the group chat.
Actually, your question, that is already the prevailing condition. No school will want to spend all its money on its athletics program. So it's always looking for sponsors to support its athletics program. Of course, there are limits. For example, in our case, we do not entertain sponsorship proposals from cigarette corporations or liquor. Yeah, because that goes against the grain of sports. Okay, so by all means, we look for sponsors. If not for the whole team, for a whole team, or for the whole athletics program, at least for individuals. And there are some who have already been supported by individuals. But as I said before, everyone is hurting during this COVID-19. Pahabaan ng PC, no?
Yes, exactly.
If your resources are big and humongous, then you can stay longer supporting your athletes, your programs. On the other hand, if unfortunately you are blessed with a business model where your program is being fed by finances coming from the school with a little bit of support from outside, then chances are you will be forced to cut your program for survival.
Thank you, Sir Herc, for that insightful comment. Then, okay, we will now read other questions or comments. Of course, from Mirazol Sunga, the usual challenge is, of course, the budget. Of course, that's why, as Sir Herc said, we should follow really ways to seek other means of funding, like sponsorship. But of course, in line with the ethical and also the trust of the universities, like Sir Herc said in the example of LEU, is that they don't accommodate sponsorship from liquor or cigarette companies, which is in contrast with the, of course, with the sport or with the principles of the school. So, of course, on the context of example, in the school where I was formerly working, our president is very keen not accepting sponsorship those who are involved in not so good environmental practices, because that is also the thrust of in Mindanao, that we are for example, Ateneo de Davao University is very keen on its purpose of making sure that we are advocating sustainable and economic environmental protection. So that's why those who are not involved, those involved in not so good environmental practices are not accommodated in terms of.
You'll be surprised at the range of sponsorship proposals. Some sponsorship proposals may come from bars. Some may come from shady businesses.
Yes,
That's why when there are proposals, we look at the profile of the company, and even to a certain extent conduct some character investigation with respect to the owners, because you do not know, maybe it's a money laundering company. So the schools have to do due diligence in approving proposals for sponsorship.
Yes, thank you, Sir Herc, for that. Okay, so now we will give time for, okay, actually Wisdom Valyasur should be one of our reactors. Maki Macrae of Muwils Academy Nueva Vizcaya, if you would like to comment on our discussion this afternoon. Maki, are you online?
Hi.
Okay, yes. Yes, you can provide your comments or questions to Sir Herc in relation to our discussion about the situation of varsity sports program in time of COVID-19.
Yeah, first and foremost, hello po. Parang
Hi.
this is a little bit like a reunion. Hi, Sir Herc.
Hello. Hi.
Para akong bumalik sa classroom mo, sir. So yeah, in terms of the scholarships for athletes and what they're facing now, I'm sure pretty much everyone or a lot of people have already seen the articles that we were talking about, certain athletes losing scholarships. And from an admin perspective, because I do work in the administration of a school, I do understand where the schools are coming from. We do have to cut, but certain things out from the budget. That's perfectly understandable. Otherwise, the entire school system will collapse. However, I also feel as a former athlete and as a recipient of the scholarship, how devastating it can feel, especially if you don't really have a lot of options.
Yes.
I think this is primarily a concern among bigger universities, particularly there in NCR and other metro cities, who do have major scholarships up for grabs. Here, kasi in the province, as far as I know, actually, we are the only school that offers varsity scholarships at any level, elementary, high school and university. We don't have a university sector, but not even our universities offer it. So it's not as big of an issue here. It's more of an issue, I think, for athletes who need the scholarship to get into a university into Manila. Kasi especially with the level of competition, the UPCAT results were just released. More than 100,000 took the test. About 10% got in. And how many of those could have been some of our athletes? And I add this to the concern with, again, my question a while ago about recruitment, about not being able to recruit a few years ago because of K-12, how many graduates did we have? Ilan lang yung na-recruit into the universities. I'm a little concerned lang, I guess, with how it will survive as a system in terms of varsity, kasi you have the graduating players, and especially for team events, when you recruit how many in a year, including the training pool. And if we cut budgets, I'm concerned lang also with the quality of athleticism that we can expect from our athletes. again, also in relation to Sir Wisdom's question. Hi, Sir Wisdom, if you're still here. Yun nga, ang tagal na natenga eh. Not everyone has internet access. Not everyone can avail of the online training programs. Here lang in my province, a lot of our athletes who came home here, they go home to places that don't even have cell signal. So, you know, it's going. I'm starting now to think how we can get everything back on track once everything, you know, goes back to the new normal. I guess that's my primary concern, apart from my, you know, the graduating athletes in high school who were kind of hoping to get into a good university via scholarships in, you know, in certain, so yeah, that's
Yeah, actually, that's a very valid concern because overall recruitment definitely will have to be pared down. Uh, if you have a very competitive team, you will have to protect that team, and so the number of athletes whom you will bring into the system will be limited. Yes, that's a very valid concern. That's the reason also why, in the case of LPU, as soon as the player or even the coach, as soon as the coach gives us a list of recruits, potential recruits, we immediately ask them, even up to now, we ask them, look, this is the spot that you are, these are the spots that you are uh, entitled to. These are the slots that you are entitled to. And based on your team, how many slots will you open up? It's all up to you. Actually, previously, this has also been the practice. However, with the cutting now, I'm sure it will be streamlined even farther so that it's true. I'm not sure how this can be alleviated. Uh, Maybe this is a bitter pill to take for the sports program because as we all know, we have been bringing all of our athletes to Manila while competitions in the provinces, development of sports in the provinces has not been taking place as well as they should be. So maybe this is one way that competition will also rise up in the provinces. Uh, some of the athletes some of the coaches that told me, sir, paano yung ni-recruit ko from Zamboanga, no? Na sana papasok sa atin. Sabi ko sa kanya, wait, ito yung sasabihin ko sa iyo ngayon. It's impossible for us to bring them here. Okay? Because that will entail a lot of costs. Secondly, we do not know when they're going to compete. Now, in Zamboanga, what is happening right now? Maybe now you can play the role not only of a coach for LPU, but as a coach because that player, I'm sure, elected to go to you because he values your way of thinking, your philosophy, maybe even your way of your methods. So maybe you can ask him to look for other options within the province until such time when it is already, when everything has returned to normal. On the other hand, maybe this is the what needs to happen so that in the provinces, the schools who are in the sports program seriously, no, can step up and bring about not only good athletic programs, but also the student athletes can be treated as they should be treated, as students first before athletes. So I'm looking at this in a positive way because, of course, all the negative things, they will all overwhelm us, but we must continue to look for something that is positive that maybe will turn the tide towards COVID-19 and its resulting conditions positive for other people.
Okay, thank you, Sir Herc. Again, a very interesting discussion. Okay, so now I turn now the microphone or the Zoom mic to one of my colleagues in the former UP College of Human Kinetics, my batchmate, of course, on a personal note at the MSHMS program. As Professor Wisdom Valuser for your comments or reactions. Then we will also still accommodate questions, Sir Herc, if you would mind to stay further, if possible. Sir Wisdom, for your comments. Professor Valuser, are you on board?
Hi, good afternoon. Narinig niyo ako?
Oh, online tayo. Live via
Hi.
satellite.
So, hi everyone. Hi, Sir Herc.
Hi.
So yung question ko is it's more of something to think about. It's more so everyone can weigh in on this now. So just like most people, I can't wait for sports to return. Kasi wala tayong pinapanood masyado ngayon eh. Now, that being said, we can't fully guarantee the safety of our athletes from the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. So if we do bring back sports and we accept the fact that we can't fully guarantee their safety, does that not bring about an ethical burden on sports administrators? That's my question. Sir Herc and others can also weigh in on that one. Yun lang.
Thank you.
Can you repeat that, please? Sorry.
Yun, so,
Sorry.
yeah. So, diba, since we can't guarantee their safety sa athletes when sports returns, doesn't that bring about an ethical burden on sports administrators in general if ever we do bring back sports?
Yes, I believe so. That's why the NCAA, look, even if the IATF already said it's already good to do swimming, to play badminton and table tennis. Look, this is the position of the NCAA. This is to play, not to do a competition. Those are two different things. You can play to enjoy the sport, but when competition is staged, you're talking of logistical nightmare. You gather them all in one place and you cannot prevent them from talking to each other. And when they compete, there's a lot of virus clouds. They're generating a lot of this. And everywhere there will be the danger of transmission. So as far as we're concerned, it's the IATF regulations, and even that, I'm sure, even if the IATF will already say, okay, it's already okay to do this, some schools will still look at this with a lot of caution. Because once something happens to your athlete, it is the school which will be blamed, will answer for everything. And it's not really, I mean, here you are trying to streamline your costs and making it as efficient as possible. Then you come out of recklessness, out of your just wanting to start competing. That's why the NCAA is proposing, whether you like it or not, whether you agree with it or not, esports for the meantime. No, at least, and the esports that we are thinking about should involve our athletes. No? So the athletes of the NCAA will play esports. At least they will have something very, very close to sports to do. This is all that we can do. We cannot even, as a management committee group, we cannot even meet face to face. So how much more to organize a sports competition?
Okay, thank you, Sir And thank you, sir, Professor Wisdom Badge, sir. So as I on a personal note, para nag-reunion tayo ng exercise physiology class natin sa CHK. Yan. So I'm glad that we're all here. You can also browse the questions on our group chat or comments if you like to react on those. By the way, we would like to acknowledge as well our friends from media, Miss B. Lauren Go of Rappler, who's also on board. So Miss B. Go, if you're around, you can also type your questions or comments, or if you want to speak out, you can also free to do so. So Sir Herc, I give you the luxury to browse on the chat if you want to answer some of the questions or comments there for your convenience, because I cannot
Yes, I
really
am
read the
answering.
questions because of technical difficulties. I guess the bandwidth in Philippines is very different most of the time. So yes, while I also browse on the Facebook Live questions, I will do shout outs on those who are participating as well for a few seconds. Maria Mirasol Sunga, Gilbert De Lima, Ninoy Marayag, Ramil Torregosa of Davao, Tess Rombawa of Bulacan, Ross Gila of Australia, if I'm not mistaken, and also Campus Echage, Balerbolpa, Davao City, Ryan Labita of Calabarzon, Jonathan Espiritu, and others. Thank you very much for joining us both on Zoom and Facebook Live, and also to those who are also on Zoom. That's Marinas Cavite. Sir Herc, did you select it already? What do you like to comment, etc.?
This is actually from Mackie McRae. She asks, sir, is it possible for the PSC, for any other sport organization or agency, to really dole out a systematic plan on developing sports around the country? Because she asked, it's grassroots that will really have to be pushed, especially because we are now becoming more regional than centralized in Metro Manila. So the different regions will have to come up with their own sports program. So she's asking whether PSC or another organization can come up with a program for this. Actually, this is what I have been dreaming about. A sports program that will develop sports for what it is supposed to be. I always maintain this. Sports can have three different purposes as well as concepts. Sports for all, sports for good, and sports for sports' sake. When you look at sports for sports' sake, this is what you see that is very heavily commercialized. Who benefits from this? The advertisers, the athlete himself, and possibly his family. But as far as country is concerned, as far as the sport itself is concerned, maybe in terms of popularity, yes. But for the whole country to benefit from sports, we have to orient ourselves towards sports for all, which means everyone should get the chance to play sports, which means that you strengthen the base from where you get your talents. This also redounds to sports for good because aside from monetary benefits, there are a lot of other positive traits, positive things that you can get from sports, among which are character building, producing a healthy citizenry, making use of the bayanihan cooperative spirit among the people. That will develop. And to a certain extent, it's sports for all and sports for good that will set the base for the medals that will be won later on. I guess that's what I wish that we can see in the Philippines at the moment. I'm not sure who is supposed to do this, okay? But maybe this has to be campaigned for. This must be promoted among the different athletic programs and athletic events so that we can actually look at a better future than just For example, Manny Pacquiao winning. Yes, bragging rights. But what does it do to the Philippine nation? You still have a lot of criminals who are emulating how Manny Pacquiao boxes, but not emulating his character. So this has to come into the picture.
Okay, thank you, Sir Herc. I hope we can still hold you for 5 to 10 minutes further. Okay lang po ba? Do we have enough time pa?
Sure, sure.
Okay.
My next meeting is at 4.
Okay. Yes.
Okay lang.
So I think local time there is 3:13. So we hope by 3:25 we can
Yes.
wrap up. So some announcements, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, for the public's information, we are having 2 times a week forum via Zoom and Facebook Live for the Track Talk Tuesdays and Thursdays of Pinoy Athletics. So some announcement, ladies and gentlemen, for Tuesday forum, I will show you now. So we have our next edition of Track Talk Tuesday. Will be having our live forum with Coach Henry Dagmil of South Cotabato, our Olympian, and also currently holding the long jump record for the Southeast Asian Games, or the Southeast Asian record in long jump. It will be on 9th of June 2020, 2 p.m. Philippine time. Kindly email any inquiry for the Zoom link, but we will also have our Facebook Live as well. And the reactor will be another Olympian, which is Miss Akiko Thompson Guevara, the president of the Philippine Olympian Association. Again, June 9, Tuesday, 2 p.m. for the Tuesdays with our special guest, our Olympian and SEA Games long jump record holder, Henry Dagmil. So some announcements. And then we would like to thank you as well for joining us this afternoon or morning here in Hungary. So Sir Herc, you can still browse 1 or 2 questions on the group chat, and then we won't hold you that much, while I'm also taking time to send shout outs for a few seconds to our participants on Facebook Live. So Ras Gila of Australia commented, I like the Dean's vision. So how many students participate in the schools at the schools? Lady of Batangas province said shout out, good afternoon. So Sir Herc, 1 or 2 questions on the chat box, and then we can wrap up for the day.
Hi, Sir Herc. Can I ask a question? This is Beatrice from Rappler po.
Sure.
Yes.
Yes,
So what is the worst case scenario for athlete scholarships next school year? Like if the pandemic still persists, and do you have plans moving forward to prepare for the worst case scenario?
Well, actually, the worst case scenario is for us. No, this is already it. Unless, of course, if COVID-19, it's good that GCQ is already ongoing, although the people have to be educated more about what GCQ really means and what it entails. But if vaccine is not yet available by that time, then we'll have to restructure programs. While we have been trying to look at the future and something worse, on the other hand, what we're trying to do is build on what we have at the moment, try to look at our options. And because distance learning distance learning is going to be the norm for the meantime, and that means that enrollment might come low, the NCAA has to be able to look at some alternatives, such as suspending first the traditional sports events, and possibly coming up with events that can be played as exhibition, or as over the internet. This has to be done, because otherwise we will all end up stopping everything. And this is also in line with what schools are envisioning. They have to promote distance learning aggressively, because education doesn't have to stop. Okay, even if COVID-19 is still there. So the schools are doing their best to promote distance learning so that when distance learning takes place, at least revenues can come in. And it's only by those revenues that we will be able to sustain whatever we're doing at the moment.
And to follow up on what you said about the NCAA, is there a possibility that member schools will skip the next season due to budget constraints?
That was, I mentioned the name of Bea Milyarco yata or somebody. She got the wrong information that LPU is looking at the possibility of skipping next season. There was nothing, no school in the NCAA is entertaining that because of two things. First and foremost is the NCAA will do its best to allow even the most challenged institute to participate. It will not make it difficult for the member institution who is already hard pressed to participate even in just one tournament or one competition. So as far as the NCAA schools are concerned, I don't think there will be anyone among the member schools who will take a leave of absence for next year.
Okay, thank you so much, sir.
Sure.
Yes. Okay. So I guess one last 5 minutes, Sir Herc. So browse the comments or questions for your convenience, and then we can wrap up. Then because the second part, while when you're already after your talk, it will be like an open forum for session, what we call it. Pardon if I don't have my cam now because I'm using my phone for the camera because my laptop doesn't work. The cam of my laptop is not working for technical reasons. So yeah, so 5 minutes more, and then you can still browse Sir Herc while I do the shout out seconds. So we thank as well again those people who joined us. Again, I'm shouting out those who participated in our Patrick Manalang of San Pablo City, Laguna. Salamat. Then Randy Fuentes Tilby of Mandaluyong City, who's also joining us, who joined us, and Miss Lady Lee of Batangas Province. Good afternoon. So Sir Herc, final
Yeah.
browse on the comments or reactions, and then we can do a wrap.
To react on what Enzo said here, Maki, it really depends on how much the governor or mayors love sport. Actually, that's how it's supposed to be. The mayor and governors are the ones who are supposed to promote sports in their cities. And, you know, maybe the reason why they don't do so is because of the lack of understanding of what sports can really offer to their constituents and to their areas. As I said, because we always focus on medals, winning the next Olympic medal or so on and so forth, we neglect what it can do to the general population, not only in terms of physical fitness or physiological health, but also in terms of character, in terms of unity, in terms of cohesion, in terms of collaboration. Actually, community programs will have to be promoted primarily because it is in this way that we are able to promote camaraderie among the members of a particular community. If you will always look at sports as a contest for winners, how many winners will come out versus how many so-called losers will come out of a particular competition? When that is your purpose, it becomes divisive. Many times you also end up with people who will try to go around rules and regulations. But if you were to focus on what sports can be in terms of participation, in terms of personal development, in terms of how you can develop your executive decisions and all the other traits that are not necessarily physiological, then you may end up with a better citizenry as compared to what we have now. We were trained to be audiences. We were trained to go one side, Ginebra versus San Miguel versus ganito, ganyan. When sports can actually unite us when we participate rather than watch. So that's, I feel that it really has to be promoted as such by the governors, by the mayors, even by the barangay chair people.
Okay, thank you, Sir Herc, for that comment, and also thank you, Bigo of Rappler, for the talk. So that ends up our first part. We would like to thank everyone who participated both on Zoom, and on Facebook. My co-host, and Andrew Enzo Williams Piri from Athletics Australia. Also, Maki McRae from Muirwoods College in Nueva Vizcaya as our reactor, and also to Professor Christian Wisdom Valleser of UP College of Human Kinetics as one of our reactors also. So we would like to thank as well everyone who participated for this forum. We have gained enough wisdom, especially in these trying times, and we hope that through our discernment and through our meaningful experiences in the field of athletics or in sport, that we can continue to guide our community in this challenging times. So na kailangan nating magkaroon ng pagkakataon na makagaod tayo papunta sa ating papunta nating goals. And I agree on the development of sport for all, that we do sport as a way of life and not just for showing off. And it also speaks about really cultural change. Kung mataas ang ating pagpapahalaga sa sport na hindi lamang siya libangan, kundi as a way pamumuhay para maging healthy, para maging maayos at malakas ang ating mga kabataan. Huwag natin silang sanayin na lumalaro lamang dahil sa premyo, sa kompetisyon, kundi para sa sarili nila, para mas maging mabuti silang tao at bahagi ng ating lipunan. Muli, marami pong salamat. And again, thank you, Sir Herc, for accommodating us. It's been also a great reunion for us in UP. And I'm thankful as well because of your mentorship. On a personal note, that I was able to have what I have now. Of course, maliit pa rin, but of course, it's still worth it than our discussions during my time as araling panlipunan student to human kinetics. Is a very 360-degree turn on a personal note. So, salamat. And again, to those who want to stay on Zoom for our Q&A, you can do so. But for our presenters and reactors, you can also leave upon your convenience. So, maraming salamat, Sir Herc, and thank you for joining us on our first part of our track talk at Pinoyathletics. Muli, mabuhay po tayong lahat. Ingat po tayo at mabuhay ang atletang Pilipino. Marami pong salamat.
God bless.
So, yes, okay po. So, we continue with our Q&A online. So while Sir Herc, if you would like to leave the forum, it's you can do so at your own convenience. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we are now, okay, salamat din po. So we continue to shout out. Yes, we continue to shout out to everyone who are joining us on Facebook Live. We would like also to acknowledge, nagsha-shout out tayo, Coach Ernie Candelario, our SEA Games champion, also Nino, our SEA Games champion as well, who joined us on Facebook Live. We are now doing dual platform kasi and on Facebook. Maki, salamat din sa pagpunta, and also Wisdom, salamat din. So we still continue our discussion. Thank you, Bigo of Rappler, earlier as well. So now, Andrew, we can go on to our Facebook Live for questions. So earlier, by the way, we have also thought on from a coach who commented on our group about the training drill. So perhaps we can give light as well to those who, by the way, those who are doesn't know yet our Facebook group. You can follow us Facebook at Facebook page and also our Facebook group. We are now ranging now to 23,000 members on our Facebook group. So we hope that you can reach further to our in serving the Philippine athletics community. We are here to serve all of you in our capacity as an online blog. Again, we are giving you information up, and you can discern and have the discretion how you will consider it. We are open to your questions, comments, pinoyathletics.info, or my personal email, ernel.abar@protonmail.com, or pinoyathletics@gmail.com. Andrew, perhaps we can discuss a little on the comment on the phases of the drills that one of our colleagues from Australia commented last night. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm friends with Coach Russ from Australia. He is a pretty successful coach from Western Australia, currently based in Indonesia right now. He does raise some valid points regarding the drills, which I will comment on. The thing is with the drills that have been displayed on the website is that they're more like, stage 3 type drills. So you have to go through the development phase. The main concern is that people are seeing the drills on our page without knowing the initial steps that were needed to get to those drills. Without the initial steps that are needed to get to those drills. So it's effectively going straight from, progression, A, B, C. Like it's like just going straight to C without knowing what A and B was to get to C. So the fear is that, a lot of beginner type athletes might just jump straight to those, just trying to copy those drills without doing the learning steps that come before. Personally, I can't really comment too much on the drills themselves because each coach has their own different system, and I don't do any of those type of drills with my progressive drill set. So I'm not really familiar with Coach Fatima's program. I believe that regarding those drills, we'd have to ask Coach Fatima her philosophy, her purpose of doing those drills, and what her objectives are. I honestly don't know Coach Fatima personally, so I don't really know what her system is. Mainly the point I'm bringing up is when we teach drills, we need to make sure that there's a sequence of getting from A to B to C, with the more basic drills, the more medium level drills to the more advanced level drills. So that was Coach Russ's primary concern, is that we're posting drills and we should be, bringing the other steps in that came before to get to those particular drills.
Okay, yes. Also, of course, since I'm the one who posted this, it's really to give the context to everyone. Of course, there are some not yet caught on video on those clips because, of course, there's the warm up and some other forms of stretching on that, and also perhaps it's really a very of course, we only participated in the training sessions during the time because we have limited time. But of course, for the benefit of people to see other ways of the drills. So that's the reason why we pointed this out. But of course, we appreciate the comment of Coach Ross on that. It's greatly noted, and we hope that we can still continue our discussion. That's why we have a constant, and that's why we are here to really try to have different points of view on training, because we want healthy discussion, and I appreciate that. And that's also the thing, because we know the fact that there are many aspiring and good grassroots coaches, and we would like them to benefit on this kind of healthy discussion. So that's the reason why, for everyone's attention, that we posted those kind of drills. So that's the benefit of that. So I hope it also clears the context of why we posted that, because that's about for discussion. It's not close and yes or no's, but more of a discussion and opinion share, because that's where learning is. because of course we cannot really provide all of the. For example, we cannot really provide like a full-length video of a training course. We posted one of those who done by Rudiger Harksen of Germany with the Czech Athletics Federation on YouTube. So perhaps you can also reiterate that, Buddy, if we can post that, because it's a really like a 1 hour video of everything.
Can
So
I just reiterate what I was the point I was trying to get across? You know, like someone such as myself or Coach Russ, for example. Coach Russ knows that these are level 3 type drills, and he basically, you know, if you're looking into a window and you see, you know, in this case the video, and he sees the drills, he knows that there are he knows that, you know, that you can't just go and copy drills straight away. You need to go through the other learning steps first. However, people who are beginners, who are on our site, who are looking at these videos, may just go out and copy the drills without doing the other learning process steps. I mean, a more experienced coach such as Russ would know, you know, that there are steps, but not everybody who watches the videos knows that there are steps to go through before getting to that level of competency with drills.
yes, I understand. So nevertheless, we can first of all, we will post more full length video next time. That's why I mentioned about the one that Rudiger facilitated with the Czech athletes. So I think that's the complete one. So we can also point at that one as well.
Yeah, it would be good to get some you know, some videos from Coach Rudiger, considering that he's worked with, you know, from Germany, considering he's worked with some world-class level, you know, like hurdlers. It would be good to actually get some videos from him in order to aid with the coaching experience.
Yes. Actually, it's on YouTube on the Czech Athletics Federation page, so we can link that one as well. It's a whole like 2 hours, so it means it's a whole training cycle. So that's a good
Now,
thing.
with Coach Rudiger, can you just briefly just reiterate the high level athletes he's worked with? You know, like you said that he's worked with a couple of Olympians and a world bronze medalist, I believe, hurdles. Can you just reiterate the who he's worked?
Okay, yeah. So far, he worked with 2 of the Olympians from Germany. And from 1984 LA and 1988 Olympics, and also currently he's the member of the national coaching team for sprint and hurdle, and the head of the athletics department, of MTG Mannheim, where the current one of the top javelin throwers in Germany, Andreas Hoffmann, is also training, and also other jumpers and hurdlers. And he's a level 4 lecturer for, I think, World Athletics and also German Athletics Federation. Because for the public's attention, they offer as well. They have the DSP Academy for their federation, so they have this really a full-time school for aspiring athletics coaches. So he's one of the lecturers there.
So primarily, these athletes that Coach Rudiger worked with on the world level, are they mainly high hurdlers, like 100, 110 hurdles? Like
yes.
They
are both 100.
He's had the most success with high hurdlers, in other words.
Yeah.
If you were to say what event has he had the best success in at the high level, it would be the 1 and the 110 hurdles.
Yes, that's right.
He's produced level, and he's produced some Olympic qualifying type performances, and of course it's not easy to qualify for the Olympics.
Yes, exactly.
And
so
even now, but it's still difficult, but even back then.
Exactly. So that's a very, very interesting thought. That's why it's very important that we continue one way or another. So to give idea again, one moment, I will share again.
I think that as coaches, we should welcome any quality feedback from other coaches. I mean, it would even be interesting to have discussion with Coach Fatima about how she runs, like how she does her program, to get some more insight into how, like what her training philosophies are, how she, why she does these particular drills, what the objectives are. It would be good because, as coaches, we should all really be learning from each other. And in my view, most of, like every coach is still learning, and like every coach is still finding new ways to adapt things. At the same time, every coach seems to have their own particular style of coaching. But yeah, it would be interesting to get her insights into, or I guess we need more videos in particular or something to that extent. Yeah.
Yes.
But I
Anyway,
believe to any feedback or criticism or whatever, because at the end of the day, it improves our coaching ability, like having that open mind when it comes to opinions and ideas, when it comes to coaching. Of course, like every coach has their own ideas and opinions of how things work, but like it's good to be able to share that knowledge. And yeah, I fully agree with you, Anel, in regards to what you said about more discussions, more more sharing of knowledge, that sort of thing.
Yes, buddy. That's the reason why we have this kind of forums, especially that most people are tuned in. And again, we would like to shout out those who joined us on board on Facebook Live. Dom Claire of FEU and John Bautista of Panaco City, one who participated in the 2019 National Open. I think he's one of the youngest. He's from Panaco City, 13, 14 years old. So, and then we will still continue to accommodate your comments and questions. So while
We have another 20 minutes to answer questions which are fired in the way of coaching or any other queries to do with Pinoy Athletics. We have another 20 or so minutes left, maximum.
yes, okay, and also to announce again, buddy, who will be our guest for Tuesday. So our guests are as follows. Let me share the screen. So, of course, our good friend, Coach Henry Dagmil, our Olympian, for the benefit of all, can you cite to us some basic statistics or records that he to hold for his athletic career?
Sorry, you wanted me to say a few things about...
yes, about Coach Henry,
yeah,
about
okay.
his achievement and
about improvement. Yeah.
And records,
So, like, on a personal note, I've known Henry for the best part of almost 20 years. Like, I was at Mapua with him. We were teammates at Mapua, so I know the guy quite well. So firstly, just going through Henry's achievements, the biggest turning point for Henry, was that he went to the 2003 SEA Games as a triple jumper. He didn't do so well. He basically got removed from the national team. Then the next year he came back in 2004, and he broke he came back, like most people, if they get sort of let go of the team or something, a lot of them just pack up and quit, and they don't want anything to do with the sport anymore. But Henry, that was really a catalyst for him after he performed so poorly at the 2003 SEA Games in the triple jump. He really wanted in his mind to prove that that he was basically worthy of representing the country. So the next year, 2004, he came back, and the national record in the long jump had stood since 1936. It was the oldest record on the books. He came back and he smashed the national record in 2004. The record was 765. He came out and he jumped 783 in 2004. He went on after that to become the SEA Games champion in 2005, 2007, 2011. He was a medalist, but there was another very good jumper, for an 8-meter guy from Thailand who came up. So it was very difficult. He wasn't able to get his gold in 9 and 11. Back in 2013 at the age of 32. and he basically took the title again. So he's a 3-time SEA Games gold medalist, national PB of 7 meters 99, and he's also he also qualified for the 2008 Olympics. I'm not sure if he's been to 2. I know he's definitely had at least one, the 2008. Currently now he's doing sports admin, and he's coaching in his home province of Cotabato, and he's also a rep for a regional director for the PTAFA, and now he's also a PSC regional administrator.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Yes. Okay, we continue with the questions. We are now browsing the Facebook page because I think that's where most of our audience. So shout out. So Ross Waldila, okay, the age of the athletes and training age to be taken in consideration, as that group from Europe could well be trained to the level of this that they are doing. If these things are mentioned, then it will give coaches a better understanding as to whether this is applicable to the athletes they might be coaching. Paul Anthony Paduria Diaz, ever wonder why Americans who are strong in distance running are white? There are blacks or Africans but are naturalized like Meb and Bernhard. So we hope we will also consider the discussion of the long distance in the near future.
So
because of course we have a very good research speaker on that, but then we will take note of that. Yes. You can browse on the Facebook page live stream for comments and questions, especially from Coach Ross Gila and then Paul Anthony Diaz, who are also on board on the Facebook.
Yeah, I see that he asked about Americans strong in distance running, while there are blacks but are naturalized like Meb and Bernard. Can I answer that in a way?
Sure, yeah. Go on, buddy.
Yeah, okay. Look at it this way, right? A lot of the blacks in America are West Africans. They came over from West Africa. Most of the strong African runners are East Africans. They're like Kenyans, Ethiopians, from Somalians, from that part of the world, right? So these guys like Meb, Bernard, I'm not sure about Meb, I don't know too much about him, but if we're talking about Bernard Lagat, he's Kenyan. He ran for Kenya, and he ran for Kenya for so many years, and he moved over to the United States to run for them. He's East African. Most of the blacks in America are West Africans, which are more, their genetics are more suited towards sprints. So that's why I think that most of the best, most of the best runners in America are more the white runners, because there's not really, most of the blacks in America are descendants of West Africans. That's why also in the Caribbean, that's why you don't really see that many good distance runners from the Caribbean as well, because they have that West African fast twitch genetic material, which has been brought across, rather than that East African. The East Africans tend to be genetically better in the distance. So because there's few East Africans in America, the white athletes sort of play that genetic role. But on the global scale, if you compare, Kenyan and Ethiopian, East African runners to the best white runners in the United States, there's for example, of Kenya, there's something like about 100 Kenyan runners who have hit this qualifying standard for the Olympic Games. If we were to look at the figures, how many white American runners have hit the marathon standard for the Olympic Games, the numbers would be a lot. I don't have the exact figures for that, but it wouldn't be anywhere near 100. That's basically just a general idea. I mean, I can't really go into the science of things. So I'm not really that qualified to go into the science of it, but that's a general assumption, what I've basically said.
Yeah, exactly. So that would be very interesting. Yeah. Okay. By the way, we also again would like to invite you on our next Tuesday talk. It will be very interesting to see more people. So, we still have 10 minutes, buddy, before we end our session. So, so far we are all the events in here in the European setting are scheduled for September and October. Especially, for example, the Diamond League, as far as we know, are that is planned by EJ Vienna to participate in. So, for the public's attention, we will try our best to cover live on the spot at least the event of EJ Obian if he will participate in the Diamond League in Monaco or in Paris, not Paris, but in other European cities because at least we are here on board. So and then of course by the way the World Athletics body as I sent to you last night they have already now the updated qualification calendar for Olympic Games. So did you already browse it if I'm not mistaken?
I haven't looked at it yet, but my question is, and I've read about this, is the organizers still going, like anyone who's already qualified for the Olympic Games, right? Because obviously it's a different qualification period. Like anyone who's already qualified for the Olympic Games, such as EJ or Vienna, who's already made the standard, they don't have to qualify again, right? Since they've qualified, period, they are now safe to go to the next, to be qualified. They don't have to hit the qualification standard again if they've already hit it. That's what I'm saying. Mind you, they probably will, but what I'm saying is, like, some athletes may be in the awkward situation where they've hit the standard, and then so that won't be a problem if they've hit the qualification period has been extended rather than being reset.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So you have from January 1. 2019 to the 5th of April 2020, and from December 1 to 29th of June. So that means that any qualifications, which are unlikely because there were no competitions, if there were any qualifications made between April 5 and December 1 of 2020 are not validated, but it's unlikely there's going to be any competitions in that period, or there might be a few competitions. So if you hit a qualification between the 5th of April and the 1st of December 2020, that basically means you're outside of the qualifying period.
Yes. I think most of the competitions here in Europe, as far as what we are hearing informally, will be done in September, October. Like the one in Ostrava, I think they scheduled on 8th of September because it's an World Athletics Challenge sanctioned event. So I think it will be also.
What this means, based on the document you've sent me, is that that meet in Monaco is on August the 14th, and like as far as EJ, as far as it's in concern of EJ, he's already hit the standard, right? So no matter how he does on August the 14th, it's not going to affect his qualifications to the Olympic Games. But what I'm saying is, if you're an athlete who hasn't qualified yet and you hit the qualification on August the 14th, according to this these guidelines, that won't be a qualification meet, because it says that between April and December that's not a qualification period according to this to these guidelines. So
and also for the public's attention, yes. At least to give you an idea, what are the standards of for the Olympic Games to qualify, aside from the token qualification for NOC or for every federation are as follows. So you can notice how tough really to qualify officially for the Olympic Games. So those are the standards.
These standards have not softened or changed. They remain the same. Go ahead.
Yes. Yes, and so far, who among our, aside from EJ, I think so far the one that's trying to qualify, of course, is Christina No for the
women's. With the athletes, it's just the qualifying. I'm just looking through these in sequence order. Yeah, Christina Knott's run 23:01. She needs 22:80 to qualify, so she's not too far off. I mean, she's run 11:40, so 22:80. like should be, you know, that should. I'm just looking through these events. So like, I mean, I'm scrolling down past a lot of these track events. You know, I've already scrolled down to the 400 hurdles. So the qualification for the Olympics and the men's 400 hurdles is 48.90. Eric Kray's PB back in 2016 is 48.98. So if Eric can find another set of legs and, you know, get in at 42, get back into you know, PB shape, then that's another possibility. I mean, the TAF already highlighted him in their possible qualifiers. Looking at these other events, so I'm just scrolling down past pole vault. Natalie Oy has jumped, I think it's 430, and you know 470 is like quite a bit of work in terms of what needs to be done. I mean, she's lucky. She has longer to qualify now, so you know she's got more time to go towards that particular standard. Jump, or the shot put. Yeah, the shot put 2110. Morrison has thrown, I think it's 2040. So it's good. He's got a bit more time to qualify as well. It gives him that more of that chance to sort of get into meets that he needs to get into to sort of hit those standards. Hammer, javelin, decathlon, walks. Okay, now the women's marathon. As far as 2 women marathoners go, I read an article the other day that Tabal has already said that 2:29:30 is already much too tough. I mean, she's run a PB. Her PB is 2:43. That's 40 minutes. So the other thing that they're looking at for the marathon women is like they're looking at qualify. This is the main way to qualify, but there's another way to qualify, which is through a complex, really grasp entirely based on points from yeah, sure.
So
I mean, yeah, you can show me them, but like honestly, I can't. It would take me more time than we have now to be able to sort of like interpret what it all means. I mean, qualifying standards are easy to understand. You either have them or you don't have them, but they're really tough now. So yeah, this other method of qualification, it's a bit complicated, but it's another way in which athletes can qualify. So, you know, Tabal has already indicated in an article that just came out that 2:29 is really tough, and she needs to qualify by the other method, which is basically getting into, you know, like meets which give her a certain number of points, and so she can compete in enough meets to accumulate enough points to get in to the Olympics, you know, as like through that second means of qualification.
Yes, that's right. So yes, thanks buddy for the highlight. And then so we are now needing our end of our discussion. So thank you again for all your comments.
Thank you.
All people who joined. Ben and the rest of Miriam College join in. Shout out ko lang. Jan Steve Navidad, our para games athlete for the Philippine national team, also joined in our Facebook group. So again, before we go, we would like again to invite you, ladies and gentlemen, to our forum on Tuesday, which is where's the, one moment. So it will be with Coach Henry Dagmiel of South Cotabato, and also Regional Development Officer of Atafa for Dr. Region. So we hope that you can join us for our discussion on Tuesday again. So this is our announcement. So we end now our Track Talk Thursdays. Again, on Tuesdays, it's we have Coach Henry Dagmiel, and on next Thursday, it will be another open mic forum for everyone, 2 to 4 p.m. Philippine time. So we hope you can join us again. So we end up. Thank you, buddy, and see you next time. Okay.
Thank you. God bless.
God bless and mabuhay ang atlet ng Pilipino. Salamat po. Okay, and our